Welcome back to my channel and my contest prep series. Let's talk about my training a little bit more and my split. So as you can see, I've got I'm essentially working my weaknesses twice a week and the strengths or things that aren't weaknesses once a week. And I guess you could probably argue which of my body parts are weaknesses. Maybe some people look at all of them as weaknesses. But as we see, I've got 2 leg days. And then I've got an arm day that's got delts in it, and then push pull. So the push day will have some triceps in it. The pull day will have some biceps in it. So what you've got is me working my arms twice a week, my legs twice a week, chest, shoulders for the most part, back, all of those are hit once a week. And really what we have is a volume issue where I'm trying to push more volume into those weaknesses. So hitting them twice a week allows me to hit a little bit more volume. And as far as, say, my biceps that I do see as a weakness, you might say, hey, what about 3 times a week? Could it get even more volume in there? Well, I've tried that, and actually I tried that this off season. But what happens is that eventually what we have are connective tissue issues that really make performance stall or even decline some. So that's probably not the best way to go, is that to keep up with the amount of volume that you have to decrease the amount of weight, or that your performance decreases. So this is why I've structured things the way they are. Now let's take a look at the actual arm and delt workout. I am starting with arm movements and then going to shoulder movements. My arms are probably aesthetically my weakest body part, and my shoulders are quite possibly my strongest aesthetic body part. So I'm hitting the arms when they're fresh, I'm more motivated, and then the shoulders we're putting kind of on the back burner. And also you can see that my volume for shoulders is quite a bit less. So we start with biceps, and then we alternate to triceps, and then I kind of go back and forth. Part of that is so that I stay fresh, I'm not as fatigued, but a lot of it also has to do with location of exercises. Since I do work out in a public gym, I don't want to have to wait for the next piece of equipment. So what that may mean is that I, like with the first exercise, the unilateral hammer curl, that I go straight into another movement at the functional trainer. So I've already got one side of the functional trainer. Chances are, or at least I have a better chance of getting that second side. So as far as gym performance goes, let's actually look at the workout. We see that my gym performance is holding pretty steadily, relatively stable. I've highlighted a couple of exercises here where I've fallen out of rep range. That's really not the rep range that I want to be at. And even for these first 2 exercises, you'll notice that they have fallen out of rep range too. I've got that 15 reps, or around 15 reps there for my first exercise, and I did not get it 15 reps. So what that means is that I will go down and wait for that 3rd and that 4th exercise to hopefully get closer to the rep range that I want. Once again, us dropping down to 6 or something like that. I've got issues with soft tissue as it is, and that's not a good idea for me to drop into that low rep range. And much of what you see as far as my exercise selection here has to do with Not exercises that I just like the most, but exercises that beat me up the least in the off season and then going into the prep. So it's kind of almost a process of elimination. Next, let's look at execution. We start with a unilateral cable hammer curl. This setup allows me for quite a bit of freedom of alignment. If my body needs to be tilted, my shoulder, my elbow, my wrist, all of that's possible with that handle that I'm not really gripping that tightly, and it's almost serving as a cuff around my hand. I'm starting with a hammer curl because I believe biomechanically it's pretty safe exercise to progress to load. It's priming me for the rest of my workout. I'm getting an okay stimulus with the biceps and really good stimulus with the brachialis. Brachialis is a pretty big part of the arm, so that adds some volume that I desperately need. I'm doing a pretty controlled negative with a slight pause at the bottom in an attempt to decrease risk of injury. I perform 3 sets here, and once again I go below my rep minimum that I've set, so that's an indication that I'm still declining as far as my gym performance goes. My next exercise is the cuffed cross pushdown, as I've called it. There's probably a better name for it. I believe Joe Bennett was the first person I saw perform this exercise, so it is by no means mine. I'll perform 4 sets here since I've only got 2 triceps movements in the workout. I'm not opposed to putting a third, but once again, it's more about what doesn't beat me up. My elbows have both been repaired, so that limits the exercises that are best for me. I've got anchors in both elbows, which get in the way from time to time. I like this exercise similarly to the first one in that the cable allows me the freedom to align pretty much wherever I need it. I think I've got a pretty drastic carrying angle, so it allows me to, as you can see, kind of have a pretty wide push there, where if I had some a fixed handle, it would torque my wrists quite a bit. And over time, that's a wrist injury. And then with the cuffs allow me to put pressure on my where I need it, but then again, I'm not fixed on a handle, so less torquing again of the wrists. My rep range here, I would like it to be higher than it is. I'm just too stubborn to back off on the weight. We are back to biceps with the dumbbell preacher curl, done one arm at a time. Again, I probably sound like a broken record, but I've picked this much because of the alignment. I'm trying to get the shoulder and the elbow aligned as well as possible. The fact that it's a dumbbell means that I can supinate this as much as is comfortable. So unlike a barbell, I'm not locked into that extreme supinated position. The other thing I'm negotiating with this exercise is my shoulder angle. If you notice, I am not seated. Not being seated allows me to put my body exactly where I want it in relation to the pad. If I'm too far over it, it's more like a spider curl. And if I'm too far back, then I'm getting a very extreme stretch, which too much of a stretch is not what we want. My rep range ended up being too low last time, so I decreased the weight from the last workout. 3 sets were performed here. My final biceps exercise is a single arm Bayesian curl. We are back at the cables for, you guessed it, alignment purposes. The handle allows us to supinate as much as is comfortable, and the cable allows me to get as close or as far away from my torso. So once again, the freedom of alignment is there. With a Bayesian curl, we have the arm extended, so I've got the biceps in the most extended position. I can pretty much get it in at the bottom of this range of motion. At one point I was using both arms, but I felt the one arm version is a little bit more comfortable, and it's a little bit easier to find one cable as opposed to 2. Now we move over to the other triceps movement, the Smith machine JM press. I have picked a Smith machine because I like how it kind of locks me in, makes my reps pretty similar, and I just like being locked into that Smith machine and not having a horizontal movement to kind of negotiate. There's an assumption that my elbows are warmer here due to doing the single joint movement earlier, but I still warm this up pretty well. When you're doing a multi-joint exercise, or any unique movement pattern, you need to be mindful that while parts are warmed up, not every part is warmed up probably for that movement. I tried to get a lot of different angles here so that you can, this is not a super common exercise, although it's becoming more common, but I think of it as a French press with the bar path being closer to my neck than it is my forehead. And notice that I'm not stacking my wrist and elbows. I'm trying to get my elbows as far horizontally away from the bar really as I can. One of the negatives we have here is that I am fixed with that bar, so it's maybe kind of hard to tell. I do have a false grip there, but I'm not gripping it super hard, and I might even twist my hands just a little bit, if at all possible. And that's because that straight bar path is just not the kindest on the wrist, the elbows, and the shoulders. Like ideally you'd want to bend that bar probably 10 degrees or so, and that would make it an even better exercise. I did 4 sets here with a pretty high rep range. That's all for arms. We now move over to delts, medial head. I picked this machine because we were getting a little bit beaten up by the last lateral raise movement that we used, so this was just the kindest on our connective tissue. I like how I can lock in. As you can see, at some point I'm just really wedging myself into that pad. I don't even have my hands gripped on the bars. You'll notice that I'm leaned a little bit forward. That's probably going to hit most people's medial delts. the best depending on how your anatomy is. Since my lateral or medial head of my deltoids are a strength, this is the only time you'll see it in my split. 3 sets were performed. I've been doing a decent job of holding gym performance with this one. Finally, we're hitting rear delts here with reverse pec deck. My body position is a little bit forward. You'll have to play with this one according to your anatomy to try to figure out where is the best place. You might be leaned forward a little bit more than me. You may be all the way back to the seat. It's just one of those things that you have to move to get in that right position. This is the only place that I work rear delts directly in my split. However, the amount that I feel I hit it on pull day might actually be a greater stimulus than this direct work. I do 3 sets here. That was my arm and delt workout. 11 days out from my show. Hopefully you found something useful there, maybe some information or entertainment value. As far as if you have any questions or comments, leave them in the comments. And the next video will be my other leg workout.